happening with another video. So what I was leading towards is there's a person from my area some years back that did a video about what it means so I was saying in another video that relationships are very significant in life, because the what we're so we're always devouring things as people, because actually some people might not appreciate it. So some people are like, man, I gotta eat, man, I gotta eat, man, my baby's gotta eat, kids gotta eat, man, my old lady gotta eat, we gotta eat. What are we doing with all this eating? We're putting it through our orifice. That's our mouth. Our mouth is like there's a word for the fact that your mouth goes all the way to your anus, for lack of a better word, as one tract. It's called an orifice as it goes through your mouth, but there's a word for the entire tract. It's interesting because what you may not appreciate when you eat food is that you are ingesting, digesting, and then secreting what you eat. So it goes from like a suction motion, like from in, then somewhere in the middle it permeates through you, and then also it goes out of you. That's very significant because the real dynamic that makes life viable, the actual buoyancy, like buoyancy is like what makes a boat float. And I was watching one man from like he was in South America. He was like a Western European, like I'm not sure what Western nation he was from, but he was in the South Americas, but he had a South American accent. And he might have been a little bit kind of bogus, because in that video he referenced that he had a child, like a daughter no less. But he was like what you would appreciate as like, and this is a little bit actually the topic that I want to come with tonight, like a psychonaut. A psychonaut, you hear the word, see, a lot of things, they have inflections that skew the real meaning, and actually part of that skewing, it allows that word to borrow from the actual meaning of what it can mean, the congruence of how it's expressed in a language and understood, and then be manipulative and actually injure different people that would hear that word, accept it on face value, but then receive the imbued inflection and the detriment of that would attain, that maybe be attended by either ignorance or arbitrary chauvinism or what have it, to actually manipulate that. That's some of what the scholar Tashreeq Bey has talked about, the shortcoming of connotative linguistics, and that it's a form of like what he would call it, a virus, like a language virus. And the English language, I've appreciated the English language as a slave dialect, because a lot of the experience of nations, people that have employed the English language, both Western societies and abroad, it is usually some form of slavery that is completely skewed equity. You could almost say, in a certain sense, capitalism is a perfect word in explanation of slavery. When you hear the word slavery is like, that refers to Slavic people. I think that's where that word Slav comes from. And you think about whips and chains, and we still actually do have whips and chains, because we have the firearm that's at large present. There's nothing more proliferated in the United States, in a lot of Western societies, than the firearm. There's way more firearms than people. That is way more whips than people. And the firearm can be applied to a person instantly, permanent, not scaring you, not making you have pain. Game over right there. That's significant, and that's a strong means of controlling society and people. Yeah. So you think about the whip is like, oh yeah, the Mazanim has a whip, and I was over Mazda Jeff, and because I know I had been a boy, and I'll be a boy, and people call me a boy, and everybody had let me know, boy, the boy and the grown man let me know I'm a boy. And even when I go about the grown man, he had been a little boy, but when I was a boy, and I was a boy around Mazda Jeff and Wiles and them. Then I had been a boy for a while. He was a little more little boy than I was. But then Mazda Jeff started. He had said now that this had been his house now, and so he was being a man now. But I was still as a boy, and so even though he's a boy, he was a boy when I was being a boy. But I was a boy, and I know I was a boy when I was around Mazda Jeff and Mazda Jeff boys, because Mazda Jeff's boy is now as a man, and so we would think that Mazda Jeff boy had the whip, but actually you let anybody have the damn whip at all times, and that's more formidable. So in slavery, actually the whip is at large, and it's viable. It's imminent, and its potential application at all times. Keep us on guard. You can't go to a grocery store. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't walk down the street. You can't actually go to bed at night without the potential for the whip being applied to you right there on the spot arbitrarily. I've said that. So what the real whip is, what the real noose is, what the real deadly consequence is hyper morality, not immorality, hyper morality. Because so you would hear something and you'd be like, dang man, it's pretty rough over them parts. You hear what happened to so and so on Friday night? Ooh, that boy, man. Friday night, yeah, because they should have known he shouldn't have been around there. Because it's dangerous around there. So you would think that something big and bad happened to somebody on a Friday night somewhere. But if you actually were there present, what happened, somebody that actually would have meted out a horrible consequence actually was righteous about something like that motherfucker said what? Nah, because we feel a way about that. That's not how it goes down around here. Or they did what? He's acting like this and that. He was flexing this and that where I stay at. Nah, fuck that, right? Nah, fuck that. So actually, that's hyper morality. That's hyper morality because it's actually justified. Is that because we're more so justified at all times, even in things that appear unrighteous or wicked. So actually, when you hear about something that went down somewhere that would sound wicked and dangerous and bad about a bad place, when it actually happened, the person who may have perpetrated may have been justified and self-righteous. So it's actually applied as a means of hyper morality rather than immorality. It wasn't be like, oh yeah, man, I'm so bad. I'm about to be mean and bad. No, it's like, man, fuck that. Or at least, man, I got my people got to eat, man. So there go that fool right there. So our people got to eat. So it's actually hyper morality that is justification is actually the means of punishment. What do you know that can lay down more hellfire than the state? So we got we got knives and now you would maybe hear about like switches and stuff like that, but they have carpet bombs, they have Agent Orange, they have nuclear bombs. They can shut down an entire apparatus of consumption like COVID-19. They can actually game over gridlock something. If you see it around my area, around I'm near about similar where when I'll just say when we lost when we lost George Floyd heinously, I couldn't get to work because it was that near about what I could do to work. I couldn't get to work. It was like, yeah, man, something crazy happened down the block. Something crazy happened. It might not be cool to drive to work. Like what? It's like that's in our city, but the whole world was actually aware of that. Dang, I digress with that. Dang, my bad. I didn't mean to reference that for no reason. Um, um, oh, but so when that happened, actually, we were having Humvees where I live at. You were actually having So I was driving down the block to work. I was going to work around that time, and there were some soldiers. And like, so when you see some soldiers, your car feels like a tin can because you know they could blow that away in an instant if they had the wrong idea about you. So you had actual like military presence, like garrison where I'm at during that time. And all I meant to say is like that would be the exception, that you would see something like that formidable and potent as a military presence where you're at. But if it came to anything, they could just shut the grid down and no more food, no more nothing. And at that time, we were actually having curfew, like some different times in history where you couldn't go out at night. Like I had to take the trash at like 9 o'clock one night, and it was like quiet. Now my place was already scarier than hell, and I wouldn't want to be outside I wouldn't want to be outside where I live at that time. But yet at that time, the actual lockdown, the curfew actually made it was scary, like that you can't go outside, but it's actually a little bit more stable. So like, dang, like we may actually get to breathe with a curfew like this. But my point is that as dangerous as life is, the state itself can bring down formidable consequences, such as as we cannot fathom how much fire and hell the state can level. But or even the judge, how much of freedom the judge can take away, how much so even people that are not afraid about violence and stuff like that, they still at least think twice about like the implications of the state coming down. But the state is not, they don't present, now I think the state is wicked immoral.